All right, Miguel and I wanted to say welcome back and get ready for part two of Life Choices, pivoting the conversations, an interview with London Reber. Again, we talk about her wisdom is just priceless. So enjoy.
Naturally happens is we come to these constant forks in the road where we have to pick between our authenticity and the connection with that primary caregiver. And
Interesting.
we'll almost always pick the connection because we're like surviving off of them. Like if you have children right now, or if you can imagine yourself as a child, speaking to whoever's listening to this, right? Uh, you imagine how many times when your authenticity, your intuition was telling you this is what's right for you, and you had, or you chose, or you thought you had no choice to go with what the primary caregiver wanted or needed you to do because you needed to maintain that connection even more than you even knew that you needed to maintain your authenticity.
100%. And environment as well is the caregivers. Like
You like school, like
yeah, like I
yeah.
grew up in a small town. I mean, I was kind of rebellious, but like I went to a Catholic school and nothing fit, like it was all ill-fitting coats. You know what I mean? And so it wasn't until, and it did like just kind of, you know, feeling that not really being truly seen, for the authentically seen. And but then getting to the point as an adult where it's like, well, if no one's going to see me, I got to see myself. Like you got to find a way. And I think that's what you're talking about. It sounds like what you're talking about with the healthy adult is
And
like,
it is, yeah.
like
I was gonna say, and even one layer deeper is like, well, especially when we get to be teens and like 20s stuff, how could we expect that they could really see us when we've spent all these years choosing connection over authenticity? We're actually, like you said, not seeing ourselves. So we're not even presenting a version of ourselves where they could see our truest self, which is what everybody really wants, right? Is to be
right.
seen for who we really are and to be loved like that and accepted like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as parents, if we can make an environment where we can like make space for our children to be authentic and still have a connection with us, for them to tell us their truth or show us who they really are, and not to reject it or minimize it or try to change them. Like for me, like the key one that's coming to mind right now that seems so trivial, or like it could be really easy to dismiss or miss, is like how my children are grateful, like how they're thankful or show appreciation with things. It like really bothers me when they don't seem like they appreciate the thing that I'm doing for them,
Yeah.
especially when it's like yesterday we went to this place called the Gentle Barn, and my son like loves cows. It's his favorite animal. My daughter's like loves dirt and animals in general, and we get there and it's just like one thing after another, and it's too hot, and now I'm hungry, and rah, 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 rah. And like it was like they weren't able to appreciate it in the way that I had wanted them to, or had an unrealistic expectation probably that they would,
Right.
right? And I
Right.
dressed up as realistic, but they're 3 and 6, so
Yeah.
are any expectations really that realistic at those ages?
I know. Yeah. It's true. And it's like, and they also have to, the thing is, it's like, oh, this is a whole nother subject. And so I'm just going to say this and then we don't have to go down this pathway. But there is so much judging in our society right now, especially mother to mother. And it's got to stop. It's just got to stop because it's fear based and it separates us. It puts us against each other instead of coming from like a space of grace and compassion and trust and connection, you know? Um,
And it doesn't honor that that mother is hopefully intuitively guiding that particular child to for what they need between the two of them, which is something that we'll never know or understand, right?
100%. And what their karmic paths set up for them prior to this life, if you believe in that. That they were like, this kid wants to learn these lessons. This mother is the perfect person to teach them that. whatever it may be, through combat, through love, through whatever, in challenges, it's like my yoga teacher used to say that she said to her daughters, and I love this, and it sounds similar to what you were saying is with your children, but she would say to her daughters, she's like, I'm here to guide you, I'm here to support you, I'm here to love you, but your karma is your own. you know your life lessons are your life lessons. I can't learn them for you, but I can be here when you come up against them. I can support you and love you and see you and hold you.
Which is showing that like they can explore, right? They can venture out and the connection is still gonna be maintained, and then they can return in any authentic truth, like capacity, and she's still gonna be maintaining that connection with them, which is, I mean, like I think all we can really ask for, like if that was like the primary purpose of parenting, right? Like is to be attuned and to be able to maintain a connection even when we don't approve of our children, because there is a difference between acceptance and approval,
100%.
right? To me, acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. Like once I accept the reality that I'm in, I can do something with it. I can work with it. As long as I'm not accepting, I'm in some kind of denial or fantasy. And
Yeah.
so if I accept whatever's going on with my children or whatever they're telling me, then I can be connected with them in some capacity, even if I don't approve of what they're doing.
Yes, absolutely.
But they don't-
London, so you work one-on-one when you're coaching sessions?
I do, yes.
How do you operate, and how do people get in contact with you if they're looking for your guidance?
Yeah, so I have what's called pivot tribes where I do small groups. It's 6 people over 6 weeks, and we do the core curriculum of pivot. You get to like dip your toes in a bit. It's not like the deeper dive that a one-on-one would be. It's also a much more affordable price though. And you still get a lot of the knowledge and awareness and tools that you can start to utilize. That is, I think, the most accessible way to work with me right away. I do work one-on-one. I'm working currently on creating a membership program where I'll do a couple lives a month with that community, and there'll be content available and to just that community specifically. Right now, I started a professional account on Instagram only a year ago. It's called at Hey It's London _. That's the same on all the platforms. And yeah, I would also highly recommend going on the retreat. So the retreat is in Northern California. It's at the facility is called the Glass House because Lori Jean Glass is the founder. It's a Monday through Friday. It is for identifying women and men separated. And then there's a 2.0. So there's a healthy adult 2.0 retreat after that, which is co-ed, which I actually went to a couple years ago myself as a client. I went back and did that after my sister passed away. And it helped me so much in my own personal journey. Like I said, we never graduate, right? I knew that I was struggling to attach securely to all the hats that I was wearing through that grief. And so I went up and did that, and I highly recommend it. I was like another game changer for me. And then there's also what we call personalized pivots. I just did one in Tahoe a couple weeks ago. They can be 1, 2, or 3 days, and we travel to the clients. You can do it individually, or you can do it as a couple or a duo. And the really ethical thing that Pivot does that I don't know anybody else in this lane doing it is we provide a coach, an advocate for each member of the family. So the last one I just did was a male and a female who were engaged. So each fiance had their own coach, and we worked together as the 4 of us. And yeah, so that everybody's seen, right? Nobody has their voice like unheard. Everybody had like at one point, I was working with the female. At one point, she said, "Can we take a minute? I need to talk to you," and we went downstairs, and I helped her get back into her healthy adult so she could really show up in what we were doing upstairs. Um, and there's also a premarital package. So that exists. Like if you're doing amazing and you're also like, what is our family legacy that we want to have? How do we want to approach parenting when the time comes? Right? Like how are we attaching when we're fighting, when we still fighting? Like how are we attaching from our parts of selves? Like maybe it's my child and his teen that are the ones that get into this bicker and we move around. Um, I don't want to get too technical, but there's a premarital package when if you're doing great and you're engaged and you're about to get married, you can also be even attaching more securely and really looking at your family legacy that you're going to create through this marriage. So,
and get the roots of communication and alignment for when shit does hit the fan, because it's gonna, because it's gonna.
and this shared language, you
Shared
know,
language. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's, I mean, it's, that's a huge one. I'm just gonna say that.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Because we could be saying the same things, but it's just being misunderstood constantly because of how we're saying it.
Just missing each other completely. Um, yeah, and misinterpreting. It's having a common language is ideal
and
for.
and having your relationship, whichever it is, like if it's a duo, maybe it's a mother and a daughter or something, right? Having your relationship foundation be where you can be authentic and have the communication simultaneously, because to me that's a healthy adult relationship where you don't have to self-abandon in order to be close to this person. And you don't have to just leave the person to be authentic, right?
100%.
How can I be authentic and be able to use my healthy adult voice in sharing my authenticity
Yeah.
and maintain that connection with healthy boundaries? Because that's another huge piece of pivot is we use this thing called circle boundaries, where there's
Yes.
5 levels of closeness in your life. And the way I like to look at it is if like you're a performer on stage, it's like who has which ticket to your concert? Is it a backstage pass? Is it a
Oh,
nosebleeds pass?
yes.
So that's how I like to look at using our boundaries. And how do you know which area that person belongs in your life? Is it do we have reciprocal trust? Are we just based on like shared interests? And when we have just shared interests with somebody, which is most of the people in our lives, like the other parents who for the soccer team or whatever,
Yeah.
uh, that's the shared interest, or even kids at school, their parents and stuff. And most people in our lives, it's just a shared interest is the commonality. And yet it can be a really thriving, amazing relationship as long as you don't have an unrealistic expectation that there's reciprocal trust and you're
Mm,
not oversharing and you're not, trying to depend on them when they didn't really make a commitment to be there for you like that. And then you're feeling let down and offended. And then there's a fight and they're like, what do you mean? I didn't even know that you wanted me to show up in your life like that. Right. So that's
right.
like how Pivot can teach people, how has taught me how to use a really healthy boundary system that keeps me safe in all my relationships. And it doesn't matter what the other person does. What they're doing tells me what I'm going to do next based on my own internal boundary guidance system, which is also infused with my intuition, obviously, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because when we
Absolutely.
self-abandon, we're turning our like head, we're going like this to our intuition.
Yes.
We're like, nope, I don't want to hear it. No, I need it to work. I need it to be like this. So I can't deal with what my gut is telling me right now.
Yeah. Well, because intuition is listening.
Hmm.
It's just listening.
And
So
that's a huge part of parenting is, is learning how to just listen and even giving reflective listening, right?
yes.
And active listening. And if you don't have a child who's like highly sensitive and neurodivergent, and like my son who is just like probably thinks most normally, like more along those lines. We'll see as he gets older. He's 3. Um, when I do reflective listening to him, it works wonders.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
yeah,
Especially that age.
you're feeling really upset because you couldn't have the cookie right before bed, right? And he's like, yeah, like, right, he feels seen. I am feeling upset. I really wanted that cookie. Now with my daughter, when she was 3, she was like, yes, exactly. Right. I mean, she probably didn't
Like,
use the
go
word,
get it.
And she's like, so why are you not giving me the cookie? I wouldn't be upset right now if you would just give me the cookie.
You understand the problem, now fix it. You know?
Oh, so
Funny.
it works differently with different kids. However, I think being able to reflect back to our children that we hear what they're saying before we go into just fix it or rejecting it, right? Like saying no is really um, helpful for maintaining a connection. Because the goal is like when they're teenagers and when they're in their 20s that they come to us with their more complex issues. Because right now it's like, yeah, he knocked down my magnetiles, right? How we show up to that is going to tell them how safe and secure and connected their relationship is with us. And that's going to guide or determine for them how much they return to us when they actually do have the freedom to not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
Amen.
not easy, but it's
I know,
worth it,
like, I
right?
keep thinking, "It's gonna be coming so soon." Mine are 10 and 7, so it's like, it's on the way. I said to my daughter the other day, because I always say, like, "You should always talk to me. You can always, even if you think I'm not gonna, I will always listen to you," you know? Um, and I tell them they should, they need to snuggle me when they're my age, and, I mean, they're not going to, but, like, and, so I told my daughter, I said, because she got real snippy the other day, because she's starting to get into that tweenie.
Yeah, our oldest, my stepdaughter's 11.
She's
I'm
on the
right
same age.
there with you.
Yeah. So she's starting to get into that tweenie thing, and before she went to bed and I said goodnight, I was kind of like, "Oh, honey, I was really upset today because I felt I felt like, oh man." I said, and she looked at me like she didn't understand what I was talking about. And I said, well, some girls, when they get older, they start to get distant from their moms. And I was like, I know it probably will happen, and that's how, I'm prepared for it. But I was like, oh man, it's not starting yet, is it? And the look on her face, and I was making kind of a joke out of it, but the look on her face was like, oh, mom, I'll never do that. Like, that's terrible. I'll never do, 'cause I was like, oh, she's still there. We're not there yet. But, you know, it's coming. And maybe it won't, you
Yeah,
know?
because like if you're saying you can always come to me and I'll listen, and then you're actually showing them that in reality, because there's one thing to say it, and then if they come to you, you go straight into fix it, solve it, try to do whatever you can so they don't feel that feeling instead of like having that moment of empathy with them before you move into compassion and problem solving. Or even saying like, are you looking for a suggestion? Are you open to hearing a suggestion? And then if they're like, no, you know, letting it just be. And then that's showing them that they actually truly can come to you and tell you anything and you will just listen. And then that's like the foundation where it might, of course there's going to be blips on the radar, but it might not be like catastrophic the way that mine was with my blowups were at my
Same,
mom.
same. And that's why I'm like, I know it's not going to be the same as it was. I mean, my mom and I it was tough for a long time. But, and so I just, I'm hoping for the opposite of that.
Well,
And
we do different
working
things to get different results.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
So,
But
right, like I have really learned in the last couple years that I am a second generation cycle breaker, and I am so grateful to my mom for that.
mm,
And there I saw this video online recently where it was like this is what childhood trauma looks a generational trauma looks like, and they had a dark like a glass of like
oh,
dark coffee.
that video,
You
love that video.
so they pour the coffee into like the grandma pours into the mom, and the mom or the great grandma into the grandma into the mom into the daughter. But before the mom pours into the daughter, the cycle breaker mom pours a bunch of water and dilutes it and dilutes it and dilutes it, and then pours like a clear glass into the daughter, which I thought was a little unrealistic. Like I'm not gonna be able to pour a clear glass into my children. However, the idea of it is
Goals,
that it
hashtag goals.
right, yeah, is that like my mom poured a couple glasses of clear liquid in hers before pouring into me, and it still was murky and brown. It just wasn't that dark brown anymore. And now I'm pouring some and it's getting more diluted and clearer as I'm pouring into my children. And yeah, I don't know that goals is ever that it's completely clear, because whatever's going to happen in their lifetime is going to add some murkiness to it, right? However,
perspective.
the concept of that, I think is really cool. And so as a second generation cycle breaker, I'm able to like look at like with gratitude all the things that my mom did do differently and be grateful for that, and then still acknowledge like the love and fear, right? Still acknowledge all the things that did not work for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And now looking at how can I do those things differently with my children, and then still being realistic with myself that what my children need is different than what I needed.
100%. Yes, absolutely.
Right. And so if we're reparenting ourselves, like that's where the pivot process comes in for me. If we're reparenting ourselves and taking care of those younger parts of selves in us, that giving to those parts what we never got from our parents, um, then we can show up at least the most secure with our children, and with our light shining without all the dirt on top of it the most we can, and we can allow our intuition to guide us in that relationship instead of that saying, comparison is the thief of joy, what you were talking about with the mom stuff, the judging. Like the way I'm parenting Michaela right now is not the way I think most people would deem, is like best practices, because I'm working on like a low demand approach with her, that like, because I see how much she needs autonomy and her need to like have
Yes.
her own control of her own reality, right? Like, and so when I say go brush your teeth in the middle of a show, she hears like, okay, I need to listen to my mom. I need to understand what she's saying. I need to respond to what she's saying. I need to turn off my show. I need to get up. I need to go to the bathroom. I need to turn on the water and put on the toothbrush and da 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 da. She hears like a laundry list of like what she has to do right now. And
Yeah.
in my mind, I'm like, can you just go brush your teeth?
Yeah, like it's not that big. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm approaching it right now where like, what's more important? My connection with her and a peace in our home, not permissiveness, but peace, where we both feel like our needs are being met, but I'm meeting my own needs, not expecting her to meet my needs, meaning like she needs to do this so that I can know that I'm a good mom.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Not using her to meet my need of knowing I'm a good mom.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so like, do I want to put her to bed after we've just had a 30-minute fight? Or do I want to like chill out on the toothbrushing and come to understand why she doesn't like it so much? And like I learned that the sound of the brush in her mouth like itches her ears on the inside because she's a highly sensitive person. And she's very picky on the toothpaste. And if it's not to the exact one, da 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 da.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
yet I
the
think the generation before us, it's like you brush your teeth because that's the way it is
yeah.
for a lot of us.
Mhm.
And I think that's where we're changing and using our intuition. Like intuitively, I'm seeing that my child doesn't want to do it for some reason,
Hmm.
and getting curious about what that reason is, and not taking it personal that it's like they're just trying to fight with us, or they just like are trying to be disobedient,
Or something. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
and that the goal really isn't to build obedient kids, because a lot of our parents tried to do that with our parents, and there was a lot of rebellion.
Yeah. Or a lot of
Generations to come.
suppression. Either
Yeah.
rebellion or suppression is the other, extremity
And
of
in
that.
comes the alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. Or or the calcifying of emotions, or intuition.
Yeah, the self-abandoning in order to maintain that connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um, I could talk to you for hours, especially about all this. I love this. And you have your intelligence and emotional intelligence are just so, I want to say vast, but also like high. And those are not a correct word that I'm trying to piece together to say that I'm in awe of your intelligence, emotional, and just intellect. And I always learn something from you when we talk, and I'm just so appreciative of that.
Game recognized game, girl.
Well, thank you so much for coming and doing this with me, and I hope you who are listening and watching, uh, you know, got some good insights, and some good approaches to using your intuition in your life.
I mean, in that wrap up, I would say too, just be like remembering that you have the power to turn up the volume. And the
Yeah.
more you're like, and with everything kind of wrapped up together that we just talked about, like if you do find that you're sober curious, like what does it look like when you remove it? It because your intuition voice is probably going to get louder. The volume's automatically going to get louder on that when we remove it. And most of us, like you said, are afraid of it. And so, like, how do we get comfortable with hearing our intuition and then not doing something hasty with it, right? Like, if you hear like something really intense about your marriage or like your best friend relationship or your job, right? You don't have to act on it immediately. I mean, I would highly recommend you do not, right?
Right.
You go and you get curious with that and you do writing and you're like, okay, so I've been suppressing it for 20 years. I don't need to blow up my life in 20 days, right?
No, absolutely. And then and again to the fact that we were talking about before is that the quality of the vibration of the communication is just so subtle and detached that it doesn't usually ring alarm bells. The alarm bells come from instinct. So if the intuition is serving up something, that's revealing or insightful, it's going to just sit like a quiet, just like a silent room. It's like it just clears all the noise out of the room for a minute. And that doesn't ignite action usually. That requests sitting still and being with that. And then eventually a plan emerges, right? If it does require shift. But the
Yeah.
alarm bells to me are never intuition. That's instinct.
Often, thank you for that clarification because I absolutely agree. And often, as we're doing our own internal discovery and work and stuff, the relationships in our lives, like just they'll change because it's just like baking a cake. If you put in a different ingredient, the cake is going to come out different. So you become the different ingredient, and what you're baking in your home or in your work environment or in your friend group, right? Like you're going to show up differently and therefore you're going to have different interactions and everything can kind of work itself out in the way that it's meant to
Yeah.
if we stay just like focused on what we're doing and what our intuition is telling us without having to like feel like, oh my gosh, I need to change someone else for me to be okay.
Yeah. Well, that's our training. Unfortunately, that's our societal training, and it's and that is also part of why I'm doing Magnetize Your Light, why I'm doing this podcast is to disrupt the training. That the training is outside in. The training is they're the problem that needs to be fixed. I mean, look, like we can take that globally right now. Our nation is going crazy about other nations saying they need to fix that. It's like, okay, but we got some problems here.
Mm.
Right? Like everybody needs to look internally first before the external projection starts. And that goes with all things, and so the disruption is outside world connection, affinity or affiliation or attachment versus intuitive origin and then magnetic expression,
Mm. Mhm. Yeah, because that is the definition of codependency when we need someone else to change for us to be okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so many of us have like you said, been trained to be like hyper vigilant, trying to change or alter ourselves to control or manipulate the outcome.
Absolutely.
And so if we are just focused on like that voice and that volume of that voice going up and actually being our guide, doing something loving, thinking something loving, saying something loving,
Oh,
then we are going to be the impact in the world to make that outer change happen automatically without even needing to focus on it changing at all.
it'll just shift, it just shifts.
Yeah, and I mean, that's so important for me to always remember with my children, like they
Yeah.
can't make us feel a certain way. We have those feelings about what they're doing. Those are our feelings.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When they fight and stuff, and she made me feel this way. And it's like she didn't make you do anything. You you felt that way, and you chose an action that was not in alignment with being kind and loving. Let's rethink that. You
Yeah,
know, like that's not you're not. You know what I mean? Like it's blaming others for your discomfort is never a pathway to success in any arena, you know?
I've studied Marshall Rosenberg and the nonviolent communication that he founded or created. He's passed now, and it's and by blaming others, it's a form of violent communication. And like to be nonviolent, he suggests saying, I choose to blank because I want blank.
Yeah.
And like even towards yourself, you can use violent communication toward yourself. Like I have to pay my car bill, right? Like I like it's like, oh, actually, I choose to pay my car lease because I want to drive this car. And
Yeah.
just feel the difference in those two things.
Well, girl, let's just take this 360 and go. I chose to be sober because I want to feel my light more. I want to
Yay.
feel my intuition more. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have to get sober because that's everyone's perspective. Like you have, oh, what happened? And it's like, what happened is I had a choice, and I chose me, and I chose a weird fucking version of me. Pardon my French, but like I love it. You
The
know, it's not
authentic.
going to be everybody's cup of tea. I chose to put all the masks down. I still got some, yeah, sure, but like I was
Yeah.
tired of being chameleon. You know, it was like
Yeah,
I
being
think
hypervigilance.
yeah, like when like as an actor, like my sense of style, you think about that, like what's my sense of style? I'm like, I don't know. I'm always trying to be somebody else's sense of style or some other character or you know what I mean? Like, and then I realized how that kind of seeps into my life. And that was part of I drank because I wanted to be with other people who drank. I really didn't, I mean,
Again, the connection, right? Like and you put down all your masks and you stop drinking and you're saying this is like a weird version of me and I'm calling it your authentic self. And now you're trusting that you will be intuitively guided to the connections that you're meant to be having in this phase of your development, right? And like
yeah,
that's
I was just saying, you don't have to be sober. That's not like a
absolutely. And if you
whatever.
are sober curious, I actually just got invited to sit on the board of
Yes, yes.
something called Sober Awakening. You can find it soberawakening.org. And it is where we are discussing and presenting the differences, how you can be sober. That some people they grow their intuition and then they realize they need to be sober, like you did. Some people get sober and then they grow their intuition, which is what I did.
Yeah,
That there's space and room for all of us, and that if you're even just sober curious, that this is a place where you can come and see why alcohol might be affecting you in a way that's not supporting your light shining in your full authenticity.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
glad that I just remembered that and I got to
I
share that with
love that.
everyone.
Perfect. Yes, and then also if you are curious in how to cultivate your own intuition, I have the C3 meetup group that meets up with the new moon and the full moon, the Sunday and the Tuesday closest to. And we go through guided meditations that look at the energies of the new moon, the energies of the full moon, what it's kind of requesting of us, and then creative expression into connection, journaling, and just another way, because I believe that creativity is an access point to intuition and vice versa. So,
Absolutely, because it is your life force energy. And when we're investing in our own life force energy, our creativity, then what we're bringing to the table in all of our relationships is more fulfilling, and we're not a burden on other people because we're like going to them to fill our cups, right?
absolutely.
Yeah, my mom goes to that regularly and she absolutely loves it, and I use your workbook. And so thank you for everything that you're putting out into the world, including this podcast. You are making a big difference. You're making ripples and waves in this world that are helping people change their lives. And I appreciate you having the courage to walk this path, because I mean, you have absolutely given me the courage to start a professional account and things like that. And
You're guiding me at this point. So, I mean, all of that right back at you, and I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
You really do matter, and I see you, and I love it. I'm here for all of it.
I
If you
love
want to call
you.
it weird, that's fine. I'll take it, but I am in.
All
Aw.
right. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, next time you'll be on my podcast. I'll have to get this going.
Let's do it. I love it. All right. Take
Thank you
care.
everyone for listening, and reach out to either or both of us if you're
Absolutely.
interested in anything
Hey,
we
it's
talk about.
London_. Is that right?
Hey, it's London. Yeah, London like the city _.
Perfect. All right. Okay, Miguel and I wanted to say goodbye. Say goodbye, Miguel. Goodbye. And thank you so much for joining us in our podcast. The look on his face. Yes, if you want to reach London, you can always reach her at Hey It's London _ on all social, and you can reach me at Magnetize Your Light. Say goodbye, Miguel.